objective, Mr. Speaker, of
Andrew
conservation
Williams.
estate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I take a call on behalf of New Zealand First, and once again, New Zealand First will be the party in this House with a level sense of reasoning and balanced judgment on this bill. Once again, because we tend to be the party that has the sensible, balanced, common sense views on these things. Mr. Chair, we have said in the past that we see merit in aspects of this bill, because we do understand that New Zealand is sitting on significant resources, significant natural resources, significant resources that the people of this nation can benefit from. And I don't think any New Zealander really would say that we should not be doing the best by our people, so that we are more prosperous than we are today and can pay for the services that are required of this nation. Having said that, we have always said as a party, New Zealand First, that any such mining or any such taking of resources must be done in an environmentally sustainable way, and it must be done so that the environment gets the benefit of the doubt, but at the same time that we don't give away economic opportunities in this country. Our party supported the exclusive economic zone bill, others didn't. And again, we said that we had the 5th largest economic zone in the world, and we had to take advantage of the opportunities out there responsibly, take care of those opportunities. But Mr. Chair, we are in two minds on some aspects of this bill, and we do wonder why, and I've spoken to the Minister, why this particular aspect about protesting on the high seas has been put in under this particular bill, because we do have some concerns. Our caucus discussed this on Tuesday, and we just couldn't understand why it was put into this particular bill. We feel, New Zealand First, that it should really have gone in under the Maritime Transport Act, and it should have been incorporated if there was going to be some provisions under controls on the high sea in some form or other, that it should have been done under the Maritime Transport Act. And I've looked at the Maritime Transport Act, and there are already provisions in that in terms of duties of the master, where the master of a ship shall be responsible for the safe operations of the ship on a voyage, the safety and well-being of all passengers and crew, and the master further must be responsible for compliance with all relevant requirements of the Act and regulations and maritime rules made under the Act. So there already are provisions which could have been beefed up to ensure that anyone going to sea, and you're the master of a vessel, and I've got a small launch, and I know if I take people on my launch, I am responsible for their safety, I'm responsible for the vessel, I'm responsible for the insurance on the vessel. I know that at the end of the day, I carry the can. We cannot understand why the government didn't look to perhaps beef up some of the provisions of the Maritime Transport Act if they had concerns in this area. Furthermore, under the Maritime Transport Act, Section 65 talks about dangerous activity involving ships or maritime products, and it says every person commits an offence which causes unnecessary danger or risk to any other person or to any property, irrespective of whether or not, in fact, any injury or damage occurs. And these sorts of provisions are therefore there, and we feel that, in a sense, this is already covered, and it is covered to a certain extent, but it could have been perhaps, that particular act could have been amended. So we do have some concerns that this perhaps is being railroaded through for other purposes to do with the mining or drilling or exploration offshore. And it could well be being a little bit of a smokescreen to hide perhaps activities that aren't necessarily in the interests of good, lawful, everyday protest.
That's right.
Now, I can remember, and I know the Honourable Simon Bridges was born in 1976, so can't personally recall this, but we all remember the HMNZS Otago and the HMNZS Canterbury, or those of us who are of that age, heading off to Mururoa Atoll in 1973, when Simon was still the twinkle in his father's eye, or not even that probably. And I think as a nation we were all very proud of those two frigates going off to Mururoa to uphold our protest against nuclear release testing in the French. Mr. Speaker,
Andrew Williams.
Mr. Chair.
Andrew Williams.
And so we as a nation said there was a right for us to go and protest on the high seas and make our voice known. And I think nobody in this country would ever say that was a wrong decision. We made it, and had we not done that, and the minister has said, oh, well, you can protest outside their head offices and you go on the footpath outside their buildings, all that sort of thing. Well, we could have stood outside the French embassy here in Wellington, or we could have gone to Paris and stood in the Champs-Élysées, but it would not have had the same effect as having a New Zealand warship in Murray, and that certainly really brought it home on the international stage. Likewise, those of us who were around at the time in Auckland in 1979 when the USS Haddo came up, the submarine came up the harbour, and there was protest at that. And again, that was all around the anti-nuclear period. And again, that was very effective because there was sufficient protest on the harbour to say we didn't want those nuclear vessels coming into port, and that was a very strong message. Again, it wouldn't have been the same just standing outside the US consulate and having a few flags and banners. So it is part of New Zealand's psyche, the right and the freedom of protest to be able to go wherever you wish, whether it be on land or sea, and have your say. But having said that, we agree it must be done in a safe manner, responsible manner. The master of the vessel and the crew are responsible for the safety of those people on the vessel, and it must be done in a responsible manner. So we do feel that there needs to be a little bit more thought from the government in this. Perhaps they need to just think through the whole Maritime Transport Act. Perhaps withdraw this and take this out of this particular bill and look at how perhaps provisions can be rightly done so that responsible protest is not stopped in what we see as a law-abiding country where we do uphold the right of law, but we also do uphold the right of free protest. So in that respect, Mr. Chairman, we're having difficulties with it. Having said that, we support aspects in terms of the mining aspect, but having said that, we also say as New Zealand First, and it's got a huge amount of support around New Zealand, that any resources taken, whether it be via the Crown or via private mining, it must end up returning greater resources and royalties to the place where it is taken from. And we released a policy just a month ago where 25% of all royalties taken by the Crown in any part of New Zealand, 25% of those royalties must go back to the region from where they are taken, so that the people who are affected by perhaps any mining or any taking of resources actually get a benefit from it. It just doesn't all disappear into the central treasury in Wellington, and the places which are affected by it don't see the benefits. So, Mr. Chairman, at this point in time, New Zealand First, regrettably, is not going to be able to support this bill unless the government really has a bit of a rethink and really looks at it and decides that what are they after here? Are they after responsible consideration of our very, very important minerals and resources in this country? Or are they after looking at other ways of stopping rightful freedom of speech, freedom of protest, and freedom of every New Zealander to go about their actions in a reasonable, law-abiding manner? So, Mr. Speaker, at this stage, unfortunately, New Zealand First cannot now support this bill.
Mr. Chair.
Jonathan Young.
I move the question be now put.